every single thing in my life that I've gone through, the hardest things, from divorce, failing businesses, I had to go through those things to get to this next most amazing place in my life.
This is a Token CEO podcast. I'm Erika. I am the CEO of Barstool Sports. We have a presenting partner, which I'm so fired up about. I met with these guys last week or the week before. They are awesome. They're called Omega Accounting Solutions. Why do you need Omega Accounting Solutions? Great question. If you're like me and it comes to looking at your P&L and you have a small business, that's like the last thing you want to do. You want to think about making your product. You want to think about building your partnerships. You want to think about getting your people and your employees to be at their very best. You want to think about the future of your business. You want to sleep for 15 minutes. Maybe you shove time for lunch in there, but the last thing you want to do is think about your accounting. One of the biggest things that we learned during the pandemic, sorry, I have to burp. One of the biggest things we learned during the pandemic when we were talking to thousands and thousands of small businesses is that small businesses have little to no infrastructure to deal with their finances. Now, that's probably a gross generalization, and there's probably some businesses out there that kick ass at it. But by and large, if you're running a hair salon, if you're running a daycare, if you're running, if you're a therapist, if you're a manicurist, if you're running a fledgling little sports media company, it's really easy to not stay current on what's happening around your finances, and in particular, what's happening around tax law. Now, generally, I don't care about tax law, but here's why you should. If your business suffered significant financial losses or had to shut down in part or in full during the pandemic, your small business should be eligible for an ERC, which is an employee retention credit. This is a hugely powerful payroll tax credit that can give you a tax credit up to $26,000 per employee. So my whole point here is, while you're running your hat store like Kendra Scott, or you're making your small jewelry business, or you're publishing a newspaper, you're not thinking about tax credits that you could get that ultimately would help your finances and help your business. And that's why you should call Omega Accounting Solutions. There are a huge amount of tax subsidiaries, tax credits that big companies take advantage of all the time, because they have the people, they have the know-how, they have the wherewithal, they're run by a bunch of finance geeks. Your business isn't like that. And what's cool about Omega Accounting Solutions is that they have all of that outsourced just for you. They're a small business champion. They help small business owners navigate the complexities of the accounting process. And they also are animals about the immense opportunities around the ERC. Call them at 800-704-2000, or if you go to omegataxcredits.com, you can learn more. So huge thank you to Omega Accounting Solutions. All right, so Boardroom, we had a big week last week, still kind of reeling from it. Weeks like that exhaust me. I find them very difficult because I just end up hating everything. It's like every time we've ever had an upfront, we had our upfront last week, which is our big presentation to advertisers and agencies. And even when they're successful or they're successful parts, I just spend all of my time being like, oh, we could have done this differently. We should have done that differently. Like I just spend so much time, it like opens up this like obsessive thing in me of like, it's just not good enough, which is a terrible quality. I'm working on that. But we had a pretty successful upfront. We had 500 agencies there. Matt Berger and his team did an incredible job. The talent were extraordinary. The show itself was long, I felt, but I do feel it was so rich. Like, it just showed the power of Barstool Sports. It showed why our talent is better than everybody else's. It showed how textured it is. It showed the personality and the earnestness and the humor. Like, I loved all that. I thought Roan did an exceptional job hosting it. So you'll see it in the vlog, which will come out in the next couple weeks. I thought the things that were great about the upfront were we got a ton of agency partners there. One of the weird things about our business is we just don't sell to agencies at all. I don't really know why. I think it was, in the early days of trying to get Barstool through with advertisers, it was easier to kind of eliminate the middleman and go straight to the client. Because ultimately, when someone got challenged on why are you working with Barstool Sports or why are you running with Barstool Sports, the client had to be informed and empowered and really aware of the plan so that they could advocate for it and protect it. So one of the things that Burger will help us do is really grow our agency business, and it was awesome to see so many agencies there. I thought the humor in the show was incredible. Caroline, who's one of our newest talents, did a song at the end, which I just thought she's just so talented. I think we just have such talented people. I think the way that we brought elements of our production and elements of our personalities into the program was really, really different. And then interspersed through all that, I think that I'm so grateful that our team here cares so much. This is our busiest season of the year. They had to cut 30 different sizzles for the show. And they do it, like, people just break their back to make things successful at Barstool Sports, and I'm just so grateful for that. So while there are 1,000 things I would do differently and fix, there's also, bigger than that, like, so much gratitude and so much awe of what we're able to pull off. So that was the upfront. There was a Profile Friday was busy. There was Profile Me in the Information, which, to be honest with you, I haven't read yet. So I haven't read that yet. I resigned from the board of the WWE, which was a really hard decision. I think it's the right decision. We have a lot going on here. We had like 700 people from Penn's, finance and accounting department here on Friday or on Thursday talking about like what the integration's going to look like and all the things we need to do, and Sarbanes-Oxley and reporting and governance, and we have a lot to do. Like there's a lot to do at Barstool Sports, and I need to focus on that. So those are the big things happening here. Next up, let's just talk about Shopify. I love Shopify. Our e-commerce store is on Shopify. They are an awesome partner. They're an e-commerce platform for online stores and retail point of sale systems. We use Shopify as our go-to platform. This week, we're launching Merchapalooza, where one talent personality at Barstool Sports is going to win $25,000, and that person has sold the most amount of merch on our Shopify platform. So what's awesome about Shopify is it's seamless. It makes it super easy to buy a bunch of ridiculous t-shirts, which is what we want you to do. They accept all types of major payment systems. They enable you to track all of your data in one place. They have thousands of integrations and third-party apps, from on-demand printing to accounting to advanced chatbots and beyond. If you go to shopify.com/tokenceo, all lowercase, you can get a free 14-day trial and get full access to Shopify's entire suite of features. If you start selling on Shopify today, you could run your own Merchapalooza program. So we're going to keep you posted who wins our Merchapalooza program. I think that's a great example of all that Shopify can handle. They can handle all of our crazy talent, promoting all sorts of crazy promo codes and making it super easy for all of our customers to buy on barstoolsports.com. So if you go to shopify.com/tokenceo, you can get a free 14-day trial to figure out if Shopify is the right commerce platform for you. Speaking of things you wear, read an awesome article in the New York Post this morning. So the article that I loved was about what Gen Zers are wearing to work. So Gen Zers are going back to the office, begrudgingly, they're going back to the office, and they're wearing club wear, which, one thing that's fascinating to me about you Gen Zers is you basically wear slutty business clothes. Like everybody wears blazers and like a business outfit, but it's slutty. Like I don't get it. I think it's amazing. I love it. But it's kind of mystifying to me. So anyways, all these Gen Zers are wearing their club wear to work, which means that they're wearing like mini skirts and leather, and like the thighs are out. You can see their underwear, like there's midsection, like you name it, all of them like real covered up on top, and then it's just leg everywhere. Anyways, the best part is then they have the like boomer managers who are like, oh my God, I can't believe what these kids are wearing to work. I think it's super interesting. One, be happy that your Gen Z people are coming to work. I think that's like a miracle. The second, it reminds me of when Daniela interviewed. So when Daniela came and interviewed, I think I've told this story before. Do you guys know this story?
I don't think so.
Oh my God. So Daniela comes and interviews. We're at HQ2, and I didn't have a desk. So I was sitting on that couch, and I had this little white chair, and Daniela sat in the chair, and Daniela had this mini skirt on. I mean, I could see literally right into her underwear. She had a little mini skirt on. She had these little white boots. She like tromped right in. And all I could think about when I read the article today was Daniela's interview outfit. So the long and short of it is that everybody's saying, you know, like, oh, you got to dress a certain way. And, you know, Gen Zers shouldn't dress like this at work. Talent is talent. Good people are good people. Nobody should judge you by virtue of what you wear. And I think it's frankly just a miracle that these people are going to work anyways. So that's my 2 cents on that. If you want to wear something more appropriate, though, you can buy 2 new shirts from us. You can buy the What Day Is It Again? So who doesn't love that? When I do a shirt, I crop it, not to show my midsection because that's a just disaster of a region on my body, but just makes a little bit of like a boy cut crop. And then we have our business casual sweatshirt, which is awesome. Doesn't really qualify for club wear, but close. So that's our merch promo. Shout out Shopify. Before we get into Kendra Scott, the other thing that I was reading this morning is I was on Twitter and I was reading this article from, I think it's Jason Kint. I like Jason Kint. I follow him. He's a good follow. Long story short, that's very random. No one here is going to care about that. But the article was in Ad Exchanger, and it was talking about what premium means. And one of the things that I think, you know, kind of speaking of coming out of our upfront, like I feel that Barstool is super premium. When you look at us on stage, I think there is a premiumness about Barstool Sports. I used to say we're sneaky premium all the time. But what this article was basically saying is that agencies and brands have their heads in a pretzel about what is premium. And premium used to be kind of an editorial standard, like the New York Times is premium. It also goes on to say that, you know, sites with paywalls are premium. Like there's a certain standard of journalism or a certain topic or area of focus that the site covers. But then the article went on to say that premium inventory is actually inventory that performs. And I thought this was most interesting, which is that's what I think is changing about the world, is that brands used to want to have association in, you know, perfect places and well-lit content. But as the economy gets tighter, as products have to compete with one another more viciously, as it becomes harder to get people's attention, what's actually premium are things that perform, not just things that have pedigree. And I think that's true in the world. I think that's true in people. I certainly think that's true in media. But I think that that's something interesting. If you're interested in media, go check out the article on Ad Exchanger. But I think it's a good indication of what the debate is right now. It's certainly a debate we're playing into. We have premium CPMs. I would argue that our content is very, very premium. A CPM is how media content is bought. It's the unit. But the reason I think we're premium is because we perform and we have a certain polish that appeals to our audience. So that's my other article, my other ramble. We're going to toss it to Kendra Scott now. So the reason I think Kendra is interesting for people here to listen to is she is someone who does not come from pedigree. She is someone who has created a brand that I would argue is either super premium or sneaky premium. And I think the third thing is she's someone who's taken risk. She's someone who bet on herself, believed in herself. She's real, she's relatable, and she's really built a pretty fantastic business around curating experiences for women in a way that appeals to women and makes women feel good. So you don't have to be a woman to like this. You don't even have to buy jewelry to like this. You don't even have to like the Kendra Scott brand to like this. What I think is interesting is the insight into the mind of someone who has won, who's lost, who's been on the journey and who wants to share it with other people. I got a ton of insights out of it that I would love to use in my life. And I hope you enjoy it too.
How much work has it been promoting the book?
Everybody says it's a lot of work.
It's a lot, but I have always run at like a
Mach
pace
speed. Yep.
that is, and I've hustled.
Yep.
Like I've been a hustler.
Yeah, you seem like a hustler.
So, for me, it's like you put in what what you get out is what you put into it.
Yeah, that's right.
So
you're like, all right, I'm going to win this.
So I started, I've journaled for a while.
Okay.
And I started journaling mainly because, and this isn't funny, but it makes me laugh. My reason why is my ex-mother-in-law started like going through dementia and things years ago. And she wanted to remember stories. So I was helping her try to remember things in her life. And I thought, I don't want to forget moments of my life that really impact me.
Sure.
Like, what if this happened to me?
I regret not journaling. It's so funny. It's a great thing.
Right?
Okay.
So I'd be on airplanes, traveling,
just
whatever,
like
and I would start to just write like things that, you know, or memories going back in my memory of like thinking about things. And when 2020 hit, my whole world, and everybody's world kind of came crap, but mine really was in a bad place. And I remember thinking, all these people thinking like Kendra's on top of her game, like everything is great, but they didn't, like, I was in a personal low. And I thought, you know what, right now people need to be vulnerable and people need to be honest. And I think the more that I could talk about not just the peaks, but the valleys struggles. And the struggle and the hardship and all of those things, that would get other people,
could help people.
Right.
And it would help you.
Yes, totally. And I think so many times we hear, you know, people saying like, oh, you have to fail before you succeed. But they don't want to share. You never really, well, what does that mean?
You don't ever see how,
So I thought, okay, I'm going to actually show you my failures and show you how they actually got me to this next place I was going.
Okay, that's amazing. And how did you get out of the low? Like, share a little bit about, because this is a lot of this is in the book. But
Yes. I mean, for me, it was one, having amazing people in my life. I have incredible girlfriends. I have an incredible team at Kendra Scott, my KS family. And I think, you know, putting the right people around you is so key. And that's part of why another reason why I wrote this book is like we all are born to shine. We all have this light inside of us. Sometimes, though, that light dims. Like we go through things and you need to have other people that can help you reignite it, right? And like brighten it back up. So the idea for me was, you know, not only helping you find it within yourself, but then knowing like you have the power to find it in someone else.
Yeah, and you can give that gift to someone when they need it.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
incredible.
Yeah.
And talk a little bit about, you've had this insane journey. Like you're a serial entrepreneur as far as I can tell. You created the hat company for cancer patients, which is amazing.
Thank you.
I love that you're a college dropout. I think that you're just such a great proof point that if you have the will and talent and grit that you can make anything happen. Kendra Scott blew up into, you know, just a massive, massive business. Would you call it a corporation? It's a corporation.
Yeah, it's a corporation. I
remember
being
in Charleston. I go into your store in Charleston, South Carolina.
I love that.
Every
I love
time
that
I'm
store.
there.
It's so cute.
It's like on the cutest street. It's just so cute. It looks so nice.
Yeah.
But tell me a little bit about the vision of creating the company. Like, what did you want to give to women?
Well, you know, I think after my first business, the hat company that you talked about, failed, I was making jewelry in my hat store. And I thought that hats were going to be the thing that was going to be the business. And then I closed that. But customers were calling me not for the hats, but for the jewelry.
Okay.
And so I found myself still making jewelry even after I'd closed the hat store.
And is this in Austin?
This is in Austin, Texas. I was working at a company. I had to go get a job after my business failed. Like I'm not
regular
like
job.
A regular job. Like that's what you have to pay the bills.
Pay my rent.
Yeah, exactly. But I was making jewelry still. And it was kind of one of those things that sometimes, you know, your future could be right in front of you, but you have blinders on. You can't see it. And my future was jewelry. And part of it for me was what I wanted, I couldn't find.
Okay.
I loved semi-precious stones. I loved color. And I couldn't afford what was out there in those items, right? I couldn't afford $300 for a pair of earrings at the time. So, you know, for me, it was like if I could make beautiful handcrafted jewelry in these gorgeous stones that I love, that was attainable. Wasn't inexpensive, but was attainable. And, you know, when I started the company, there was fashion jewelry, which was, you know, think about the Claire's Boutique, you know, imitation, whatever.
It was
and then
chintzy.
There was bridge, which was, you know, gold vermeil, sterling. There wasn't really anything in between fashion and bridge.
And bridge is a category?
And then there's fine. So there's fashion, bridge, and fine.
What's a brand in bridge?
Let's see. Anything that's like sterling or gold vermeil based is probably considered bridge jewelry. Okay, so it's bridging between fashion and fine.
So when like a brand like an Isabel Marant makes jewelry,
yeah,
is that fine or is that
so
bridge?
she's now coming into my little place I carry.
Okay.
It's a fashion bridge line.
Okay.
So we're kind of in that
You're
between,
in that world.
right?
Okay.
So that's what I started in.
Okay, got
now I'm in bridge and I'm in fine jewelry and engagement and all the
You're
things.
like, I'm doing
all the
vertically
jewelry.
integrate this
yeah.
thing. Okay.
But for me, that's really kind of how it started. And I was very quiet about telling people I was starting this next business because I did have that failure and I was embarrassed and I thought people, be like, oh goodness, here she goes again. Yeah. So until I started getting a little bit of momentum, I finally felt like I could say, okay, I'm doing something. I'm doing this
the
again.
Same way, which is I don't like to say anything until it's been successful. I'm like, let me fail in peace.
Yes.
And then when I'm sure of it being a thing, then I can.
Right.
Then I'll talk about it. Okay.
Exactly. And it was little wins. Like I started selling to boutiques in Austin. And I was so engaged in those stores, as a retailer who was in hats.
Yeah.
None of my, designers would ever come and do trunk shows.
Yeah, you're like, I'll service the shit out of you.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like, if something isn't working, I'll replace it. I want you to have something in your case that's going to sell. So you really had a
customer mindset.
Totally. I mean, I would go in and merchandise the cases. I'd do trunk shows for them. I'd meet customers. I mean, I was always in there. Mm-hmm. And it worked. I mean, the products were selling great. I was refilling orders. And then I got a Dallas rep who saw that I was having this great success in Austin, carried my line, and it was like a kind of a multi-line accessory showroom. So then started selling, not just throughout, the whole state of Texas, but she was selling in Oklahoma and other southern states.
So that's how it works. You sell into a showroom and then buyers go to the showroom and they're like, I want this from Kendra Scott and I want this from here.
Exactly.
This from here. Okay.
So, and I would go to all the markets as well. So they would, this showroom, she'd be like, Kendra, a lot of the designers don't come. Like, you don't have to come. And I'm like, no one is going to sell this.
Like, I can sell
better than me.
Yeah.
And so I was at every show, every market, meeting the store owners directly.
So interesting. Wait, can I ask you, kind of, what's the business model? What's the cut that they take?
So it's a wholesale account. So usually they have, keystone margins. So it's like 50% margin.
Okay.
And I was only doing wholesale in the first, 8 years of my business.
So you're doing a wholesale deal with a showroom. That's how it works in jewelry. Is that right? Or
no, the showroom reps your line. They get 15% of anything that sells.
They're like agents.
And it's a wholesale price, and then the retailer, whoever it might be, then marks it up from there. Okay, got it. So they get a cut, like a selling fee.
Sure.
Usually 10 to 15%, depending on your showroom.
Okay.
And so I was
teaching us so much.
Oh,
I want to learn about the jewelry business.
Yeah. Well, and it's how that is in accessories, handbags,
everything.
Everything. If they have a rep, that's usually how it works. So that was a great way for me to grow to other stores.
So you're like, I'm going to come to the showroom and I'll talk to your buyers and
100%
this thing up.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And were you like the only one there?
There were a few other brands that would go too. And it was funny because those are the brands that you could tell. I mean, we were all so vested in our businesses. And I was starting out in my extra bedroom of my house with $500. Like, I had to make this business work. Yeah. And so many of the other ones that were there were similar in that, like, we were hustling.
Yeah,
like,
you had to make it work.
We weren't just like, this is just we're going to do something. I mean, this was like, this is a business and we got to make it work.
Yeah.
So for years we just did wholesale because after my failed retail store, the hat store, I was too afraid to ever
you're like,
go
I'm not
back.
Gonna have my own doors.
No, I mean, and that's where I laugh because never say never. Now I have over 120
it's insane.
retail stores.
Did that scare you the first time you opened one where you're like, oh God?
You know what? It was, I had to open it, and I write this in the book, I had a shake the snow globe moment, which was 2008, this beautiful thing called the recession. The Great Recession happened.
That was awesome.
And I was just clipping along, selling to all the stores I was selling to. The recession hit, and I realized all of my eggs were in one basket. The power of the future of Kendra Scott was in the buyers' hands that were writing the orders. Boutique owners, which their businesses were shuttering every day. And I didn't have a direct connection to my customer, the most important person. And so that forced me to really look at my business model and say, we are going to focus on direct to consumer. We created an e-commerce website. We created Color Bar, which is this great customization tool. We opened our first retail store.
And did you have to raise money to do this?
Nobody would ever. I couldn't raise money. I tried.
Why?
Nobody wanted to invest in me. For 10 years. That
piss you off? Like, are you still mad about this?
No,
now?
I'm not mad at all because I ended up keeping a lot more equity for
company.
longer.
100%.
No, at the time it was more frustrating just because everything was done on line of credit and credit card debt. I mean, I had signed everything I had up for collateral on these loans.
Good for
and I
you.
was a single mom.
Yep.
So it was just so much risk.
Yeah.
But that's also gave you the drive of like, I have to make this
Completely.
work. You know, I didn't have the ability.
I like that feeling.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a fight or flight,
Yeah,
you know,
that's
kind of thing. So 2008, changed my business model, opened my first retail store in Austin when everybody else was closing.
Yep.
People are like, this woman's
You're
lost
crazy.
her mind.
Yep.
And we created a jewelry shopping experience that was different.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing under glass. Everything was freely displayed, so you could touch it, try it on. We had an actual color bar where you could get your jewelry created in front of you, drink champagne, eat a cupcake. Like for me, it was, I wanted to be very disruptive.
Yeah, sure.
Because I hated
and create an experience, the jewelry shopping.
I hated
jewelry
it.
shopping is very intimidating.
Well, and I feel like you walk in and they're kind of judgy.
They judge you. Yeah, they're like,
and
what are you wearing?
And I was like, we're going to take all that away.
That's amazing.
Like, it's going to be a fun party.
And, where you can be happy in yourself.
And my deal was like, look, if they leave with a smile, we've succeeded, because if you think about connection before transaction, you're going to end up having great customer loyalty.
Yep.
And I think that has been the biggest difference in our brand and why we are one of the ones still opening brick and mortar, even
when
after
nobody else is.
Because of that connection comes first.
How do you train what do you call your salespeople?
Well, they're part of the family, the Kendra Scott family.
Okay, how do you train the family?
For us, first we hire on heart.
Okay.
So I can teach skills, but I can't teach heart.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't care if you have a gold-plated resume.
Yep.
If you're not kind and nice and have this like loving personality,
good energy about you,
you can't work at Kendra Scott.
Yep.
So that's rule number one.
Okay.
It's hire on heart. Then it's easy, right? Because you get these warm, kind, thoughtful people that share our core values, which is family, fashion, and philanthropy, because we're big on giving back. And then the skills of it is just really teaching them about product at that point, because our customer service is easy. It's the sister rule.
Yeah. Oh, what's the sister rule?
Treat your customer like your sister. That's it.
I love that.
That's our customer service handbook.
Okay.
If your sister has a broken earring, what do?
You help her fix it.
You fix it.
If
she lost one earring, you'd let her buy another pair at 50% off, wouldn't you? Yeah, I would. Yeah. So the sister rule is real easy. And it's really then just product.
Yeah.
It's like, here are stones. This is how Color Bar works.
Yeah, this is how it's made.
And you have the power to please the customer no matter what position you're in. If you're part-time, a holiday help, or the manager of the store, you all have the same power. You don't have to ask a manager for approval. In that moment, whatever that customer needs, you make sure she gets what she needs.
Okay, that's great.
And if I'm hiring you in this position, the most important position in the world for any brand is the front line.
Completely.
So if you don't have faith in them to make a decision, then you shouldn't have put them in those places.
Right.
So I trust and believe and respect my team so much. And when they're given that trust, they take it seriously. Yeah. And they also feel so proud, because most companies that they've worked for
would never give them that
they
trust.
would never give it to them.
That's awesome. And was it hard to sell the company and let go?
I didn't sell. I'm the majority shareholder.
Oh, well, I love that.
Come on. No, I'm the majority shareholder.
And
I'm
you
chairwoman.
just moved to chairwoman. So who
Yes.
runs the company now?
So my CEO is Tom Nolan.
Okay.
He's been with me for 7 years. He was on my board first, then went into a CMO role, CRO role,
this guy's done
president role,
everything.
all the roles. And he's like my brother. I mean, we think the same. And I think during the pandemic, after 20 years for me of being CEO, was the time where I realized I've got the greatest team on the planet, and I can pass the baton on some of these things, where I can focus on the things I know can propel the company forward for the next 20 years, which is to be the visionary, the head of design still, the customer advocate. You know, I'm always thinking about the customer. New categories, new places we can go with the brand.
That's awesome.
So it's really been, in our philanthropy. I started the UT Women's Entrepreneur and Leadership Institute. Being able to really do some of these things that I wasn't able to do is now even propelling the company forward even more. So it's really exciting.
That's awesome.
Yeah, really exciting.
What's your advice to young women who are like single or in debt or trying to figure out their career? Like, what's your advice to them?
Well, first of all, don't give up.
Yeah.
And I think, you've got to sometimes think about, okay, where am I at? And I always say, and I do this in my book, there's a little called the Vivid Vision, where you're looking at 3 years from now, because that's a manageable time frame, right? where do you want to live?
Yeah.
Who's around you? Who's sitting at your dinner table? What kind of career? What does that look like? What are things that you're passionate and excited about?
Yeah, what do you want in your life?
What do you want in your life? Because your career is one aspect, right? But your family, your friendships, all of those things matter. So if you start to know, okay, I see myself in that 3-year self, you'll start to make decisions in that
will lead
person
you there.
will lead you there. But you've got to be able to clearly see it. And again, it's not just one aspect. Sometimes we focus so much on the job or this aspect. And you go, why am I not feeling fulfilled and happy? Because a whole life.
You've left the other 6 pieces.
Yeah, you got to have all those pieces to the pie.
And are you better at this now than you used to be? Like, what do you struggle with now?
You know, I think, I don't know if I struggle with the vivid vision because I'm always thinking ahead. Like for me, my mindset is always futuristic.
Going.
You know, I'm always thinking about it. I think what I've gotten better at, what I wasn't as good, is enjoying the present moment.
Okay.
And I think the pandemic, through that time where we all kind of got to be at home, got to be with our families a little bit more, I'm now taking a minute to go, this is really cool.
Yeah, I like this.
Yesterday I was standing in Times Square and they've got the Born to Shine thing in the Times Square. And I stood there and I was shaking and I just thought, I enjoy this moment. This is a moment.
Yes.
Where before I'd be like, okay, we got to move to this thing.
I gotta go to this.
And I almost miss it. So I think that's one part where I'm continuing to get better at it.
Yeah, sure.
But appreciating those moments.
That's so great.
Yeah.
And then what would you say, you talk a lot about failure in Born to Shine, like if you were to just capture a couple of those things for people, like when you're feeling at your lowest or you're feeling like you failed or you're ashamed or a relationship didn't work out, like how did you prop yourself up?
Well, I want you to start looking at failure. First of all, that word I hate because I want to say failing forward.
Yeah.
There's every single thing in my life that I've gone through, the hardest things, from divorce, failing businesses. I had to go through those things to get to this next most amazing place in my life. And it doesn't just make you stronger, you learn so much. So when you're in these moments, you think about it and go, this sucks, no question, right? You're not trying to make it, we're not saying this is fun.
Yeah, this isn't
right?
pretty.
But at the end of the day, you're going, okay, I'm going to take the nuggets from this. The lessons, there are so many lessons in whatever this is, because something is waiting for you.
Yeah, that's right.
There is something waiting for you, and you are going through this because now you're going to have these golden nuggets in your pocket of knowledge that are going to, it's the bridge to get you to this next place. And, you know, the fail of the hat box, that was my MBA in the school of retail, Hard Knocks. If I hadn't had that business and failed at that business, I would not have been able to have the successful business I have today. If I didn't have that divorce, I first of all wouldn't have my 2 beautiful sons, but I wouldn't have been able to grow into the woman I am.
What you needed in a relationship.
And it's not that we go into these things hoping that that's what's going to happen.
But when it does happen, you're like, what am I going to learn from this? What am I doing with this?
And it's okay too to not, I'm a very optimistic person, but to also say like, hey, in those moments, it's okay to say this is hard. And it's okay to ask for help. And I think for me, I've had such a strong support group of female friendships, family, that have really been able to, where I can say, God, guys, I need some.
This sucks.
This sucks. And I think if you can have even just a few of those people in your life that can be there for you in those moments, then you're not walking through it alone. You're going to get out of it even quicker.
Yeah, that's great. I think your sister rule is you kind of you get back what you project. And I think the way you project that is really powerful.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Tell people how they can follow you and find you and to contribute to what you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, Kendra Scott on Instagram, Kendra Scott on Twitter, all the handles. Born to Shine, the book, is available anywhere where books are sold.
Great.
So the book is, I think, very real. It's very vulnerable, very real. But it's also so relatable. I think when you read it, you'll feel like at the end of it, I think you'll feel like you know me pretty well. But it's not just about me. It's about all of us as people, as humans that go through struggle and that are trying to figure out where we're headed. And so I think anyone that's going through transition,
it's a great read.
We'll get a lot out of it.
Thank you for coming. This was so great.
Thank you for having me. So
that was so fun. All right, so that was Kendra Scott. How great was Kendra Scott? She's great. Should have put my makeup on before that interview, but whatever. Speaking of buying jewelry, you should look at a Ridge wallet.
super thin, fits in your pocket. You could dress like a man like me. You could dress like a woman like Kendra Scott. What's awesome about the Ridge wallet is it's very high quality. It's extremely durable. The thing feels like it could get run over by a car and it would still be like super intact. Speaking of, I was watching this crazy show on cockroaches. Did I tell you guys about this? No. Oh my God, it was so great. So, all right, I have to talk about it. So, all right, so I was watching the show on cockroaches. Cockroaches are an amazing, amazing creature, mostly because they're basically indestructible. And it was talking about why cockroaches are indestructible. And one of the reasons they're indestructible is the way that their shell is that when the shell lies flat, you can't break a cockroach by stepping on it because the weight gets dispersed across the entire shell. That reminds me of the Ridge wallet. That's how strong the Ridge wallet is. So if you want to get a Ridge wallet, you can get 30 different colors. It's carbon RFID that's made with RFID blocking technology. So not only can you not break it, but nobody's going to steal what's in it. If you go to ridge.com and use code Erika, you can get 10% off your order. All right, let's transition to Q&A, taking risks at work. How do you ensure that a risk won't turn into a significant career setback? Okay, dude, you can't. So that's my first thing. That's what's great about a risk, right? That's what's great about the Kendra Scott story is when all the other designers were like mailing their stuff into the showroom, she's like, my existence, my livelihood, my salary is based on me getting people to buy my jewelry, and I sure as hell better show up and make sure that happens. So when you take a risk, you cannot guarantee that you're going to succeed. That's the glory of a risk. I think the other thing about a risk is that's exactly what makes it so exciting, the idea that you might fail. Like, I think that can propel you into a place. I look at my own life. I look at Barstool Sports in particular, really, that Barstool Sports changed my life because I wasn't sure it was going to work. And as a result, I worked so hard to be sure I didn't fail. I'm not alone in that. I'm not unique in that. But if you take a risk, you are never going to be able to guarantee that it won't create a quote unquote setback. What I believe is that the risk, even if it's a total failure, it's a dog, it bombs, it's a disaster, it's not going to hurt you because you're going to learn something from it. You're going to take lessons away from it. You're going to have made one or two connections which will be helpful for you. And then 5 years down the road, when you're doing the next thing or the big thing, that failure, that experience of taking the risk and having it not work out is going to teach you and prepare you for that opportunity. So if you're looking for a bubble wrapped career where you never have, it's like chutes and ladders. You never go up to the top and go down to the bottom. Your career is not going to be that interesting. But if you are willing to accept that, like, shit, this might not work out, then you can do anything. The other thing is that nobody cares about your career besides you. So I don't even know what a career setback is. Like, I had a career setback. I was making a ton of money, and then I went to making no money and believing that the equity would work out. The equity absolutely did not work out. So, like, I guess that's a career setback. But if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have been equipped to take this job at Barstool. So I think everything kind of works out. And you got to have the mindset that everything is going to work out and everything is going to be okay. But it's a really good thing to push yourself into the unknown. Second question, after you create an idea, what's your suggestion for building support around that idea in order to succeed? This is a great question. I think sometimes people think just having the idea is enough. I actually would disagree with that. I think the idea is like 20% of things, and 80% of it is building support and endorsement for that idea. So one thing that I've always tried to do is when I had an idea, it's to over-communicate the absolute hell out of it. So if you have a vision, I met with KFC Radio this morning, and we're trying to figure out how Barstool New York can be a huge comedy hub, how we can attract all the best up-and-coming talent to come here, how we can sign comedians, how we can make specials, how we can do pay-per-views. Like, we were imagining all the things that we could do to make Barstool Sports New York more of a place that helps comedians. The next step, that's the idea. the next step is like, how's this going to work? It has to be communicated to production. It needs to be communicated to finance. It needs to be communicated to the HR team. It needs to be socialized amongst the comedy people here. The idea itself should be told to the press. So one of the biggest things about making an idea a reality is having a plan for execution and just communicating it. The other thing is, don't get all wandery on your ideas. Like, I tend to wander all the time. Like, my brain just goes to dumb places constantly. But you've got to stay focused on what the original idea is. How do we make Barstool New York a hub for comedy? Anytime a comedian is coming through town, anytime a comedian wants a springboard on their career, anytime anybody wants to sell a comedy special, how do we make this the place? That's the idea. And then the question is, how do we support our own talent doing that? How do we make sure we don't, take a bath financially doing it? How do we make sure all the right comedy people know about it? And then how do we make sure that when we execute it and we produce it, that it's something that can work? So communicate a lot, have a vision and a plan, and be able to execute the plan. And don't keep changing the vision. Make the vision as simple and straightforward as possible. All right, third question. There are thousands of good ideas worth pursuing. We only have so much capacity. Therefore, we have to focus and choose opportunities carefully. How do you decide which great ideas are worth going all in on and which to leave for others to tackle? This is a tough one. I think it's amazing to be at a place where there's unlimited potential and where you could pursue any number of things. I think in your gut, you really understand which things could work and which things can't. I also think it's really important to have partners and people who have vision. So people who can see a future or people who believe in something. We just launched 2Yay, which is this athlete marketplace. I'm not convinced it's going to work. I'm hopeful that it's going to work. I'm bullish on it. But mostly I trust the people who are building it. And I believe in what we've amassed in all these athletes. So in my opinion, that's an idea that we want to get behind and that we want to support. There's other ideas that we have all the time. New licensing partnerships, new brands that we could create. At least I try to think through that is, does it have a person who can drive this to conclusion? Does this map to a core set of abilities that your team or your company has? Is this aligned to what your business is? Like, does this make sense for your company? Ideas that fit into those sweet spots are ideas that you should pursue. Ideas that don't feel like they map directly to those things are ideas you should put to the side. Okay, so then just to wrap it up on risk, I think everybody takes risks and you should give yourself a pat on the back when you do take a risk. A risk just means that you're making a move, and that you don't exactly know where that move is going to take you or how that move is going to end up. And, I feel like I've taken a lot of risks. I've jumped around my career. I've lived in different places. I've worked for different sized companies. I've taken bets on different type of people. Obviously, coming to Barstool was a big risk that, we worked hard to make pay off. I think it's really good to put yourself in a place of being uncomfortable. I've always said that. I think I'm so grateful for the points in my life when I've been uncomfortable. It's unpleasant to be uncomfortable. I've been in an unpleasant place, I would say, for the last 6 years. But it's been breathtaking. It's been breathless. I think I'll be tired for a decade after, my Barstool Sports time and everything that's happened in my life and everything that's happened here. But it was so enriching. I'll be thinking about this for my entire life and looking back on it and enjoying the journey of it. And so for me, the biggest thing I would say, and I think Kendra Scott kind of said this too, which is don't look at things as failure. Things aren't binary. Something isn't going to be good or bad. Bad things can turn into great things later. Good things cannot actually be that good for you. So just having some perspective on it's all going to be okay. Being willing to be uncomfortable and still being able to be happy and confident and learning despite being uncomfortable. I think those are skills that you can take with you, your entire life, and it will give you memories that you can look back on. The other thing I thought that I really liked from what Kendra said is just the idea of journaling. Like, I wished I journaled more. It was funny, I was talking to my brother, and I just read this book called Shantaram, which is this really amazing long novel about an expat, this Australian criminal who escapes from jail and he moves to Bombay. And it's really the story of his life in Bombay. And it's kind of fantastical, and there's drama and crime and love and all these things. And it's based on a true story of the writer who escaped from jail and moved to Bombay. And I was talking to my brother about it because my brother is an expat. And he was like, he's like, yeah, everybody tells me I'm like this guy. And I'm like, oh, you should write a book like that. And he's like, I didn't journal, so I can't remember all the specifics of the journey. And it's all of the specifics of the journey that make things so rich. Like, I'm struggling with this right now. Like, I'm trying to remember, as we move closer to all the Penn stuff, like, I'm trying to remember all those special moments from way back being 6 years ago, which I can't even remember at this point. And I wish that I journaled. And I think the thing about taking risk is that you always look back on your risks that you've taken and you feel good about them. I really think people feel good about them. And journaling what it felt like, how you were scared, how you were unsure, the self-doubt that you have, the hopes that you have, it just helps you learn more from your experience, and I think can ultimately help you take more away from those solutions and more away from those situations. So that's kind of my 2 cents there. So let's quickly talk about Curve. So Amanda Orson, she's been a guest on. She's the CEO of Curve US. I love her. If you feel like listening to an insightful interview, she's it. What's cool about Curve, it combines your entire wallet into one app. So I don't know about you, I'm always missing a credit card. There's a credit card lost in my bag. I forgot about my credit cards. With Curve, you upload everything into the Curve app, and it lets you manage all of your credit in one place. When you use Curve, you're basically like, it's like PayPal, right? You're like, oop, I want to use my Chase card. Oop, I want to use my First Republic card. Oop, I want to use Amex. Or you can assign your card for certain purchases. They have a feature called the Smart Rule feature, which lets you assign certain bills or certain purchases or certain things to specific cards. The other thing that's great is they give you additional cash back on top of any rewards you're already getting from your credit cards. So this doesn't take away any of your bonusing and points and blah, 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 discounts, cash back, you name it. It just aggregates all of your credit cards into one place, and it's super easy to use. You get additional bonuses and points. All right, so if you want Curve, you can sign up at curve.com/barstool, and they'll give you $20 in Curve cash back. So that's curve.com/barstool, and you get $20 in Curve cash. What's better than that? Okay, closing thoughts. Here are other things that I'm thinking about. One is TikTok is the new Google. So I don't know, there was a big article in the New York Times this weekend. It was also, I think, yesterday in USA Today. But there's kind of 2 things happening at once. One is that millennials and Gen Z aren't using Google for search, they're using TikTok for search. So anybody who is not afraid of TikTok right now, like, they should be very afraid of TikTok. Like, TikTok already blowing Facebook and Instagram out of the water. Now they're threatening Google. Obviously, somebody's going to want to get TikTok killed in the near future because of that. But super interesting that the way millennials and Gen Z are looking for information is in video. So you search on TikTok, what they tend to do is they'll find a video, they'll look at the comments to see if it's legit, and that the video provides the answer to the question. So the example in the New York Times was, I think, what do you wear on a job interview? And the search result was a woman explaining what's the idea. Now it's probably like a slutty business outfit. It's like working girl gone, I don't know. Yeah, it's working girl gone wild. But it's so interesting to see the behavior of looking at TikTok for information and having that information be surfaced in a short form video that comes from someone you've never heard of, you don't know, and you'll never see again. So super interesting. The second piece of that is how much misinformation is coming from the searches on TikTok, because the videos are unverified. They're from people you don't know. They're super random. And I think you're going to see this push-pull of discovery and and misinformation as something that's very big happening in media right now. But I thought it was just so interesting the way people are searching for information. So anyway, so I think that that's interesting. Like, I think if you're a brand that wants discovery, you've got to start thinking in TikTok. I had super interesting conversation with RJ from the PLL this weekend. Went to the PLL championship. Congrats to the Water Dogs. I was asking RJ what he thinks in, and he's like, I think in Instagram. And I was like, you can't think in Instagram anymore. You have to think in TikTok. And it just shows you how, he's young. Like, he's so young, but it's also the world changes that fast. So thinking more in TikTok, I think, is really important. Other thing I was reading today was Scott Galloway had an infographic that he posted, which was very smart, driving to his subscription product. But the infographic was about apprenticeship. And one of my biggest things is that work is an apprenticeship. Like, I truly, truly, truly believe this. I think that you learn so much about work at work. The more you can apprentice from someone, the better off you are. And what he was saying is it looked at six countries and the number of apprentices per 1,000 workers. Denmark is number one. So per every 1,000 workers, there are 48 apprentices. The next was the UK, then Germany, then Australia, then Finland. Jesus, the Nordics are like crushing it. The US is 3. So for every 1,000 people in a workplace, there are 3 apprentices. And I actually think our internships, our Viceroy programs, those are apprenticeships. Like, part of the reason I think we're so successful is that we're creating a constant apprenticeship here. We cross-pollinate people. We teach people all different skills. We teach them hands-on things. Like, my mom is a vocational teacher, and I always felt like vocational teaching was exactly what we're doing here. And I think that's really important. And, his headline was, we need alternative on-ramps to the American dream, because essentially the only way to find the American dream is, 1, through a little bit of luck, and 2, through a lot of hard work. But apprenticeship is a really great way to deliver that. So I thought that was super interesting. Speaking of Kendra Scott, Kendra Scott talked about her MBA was having a hat store that bombed. That is kind of an apprenticeship. She may have benefited from more of an apprenticeship. She probably apprentices people now, but I think that's kind of an interesting way to think about your career, think about your internship, think about your first job, think about your mentor, think about your manager, is like, how do you apprentice on what they're doing and take that into your own life and take skills from it to build your own career. So that's it for today. That was a lot. Thank you to everybody for listening. Thank you to everybody who's given us a rating and a review. Feel free to go back and do that. We appreciate it. We listen to all of our feedback. Thanks to everybody who sent in a Q&A. We will be back here next week, and that's it.